Kelly and Precious had been best friends for as long as they could remember. They had met as kids when Precious' family moved into the house next to Kelly's. From the moment they started playing in the neighborhood together, they became inseparable. While other kids ran wild, Precious had been a sharp, intelligent girl, always in class. Kelly, on the other hand, was more adventurous, always fascinated by how things worked. He would take apart toy cars, radios, and watches, only to struggle with putting them back together. Precious had been the one to help him. "Kelly, if you're going to be an engineer one day, you need to learn how to fix things, not just break them," she would tease. And she had been right. Years later, Kelly became a successful engineer, while Precious pursued her dream of becoming a doctor. Their bond remained unshaken even as adulthood came with its own distractions. Precious was always there for Kelly, whether it was helping with his office proposals, listening to his frustrations about work, or just being the steady presence he needed. Even Ben, Kelly's younger brother, loved Precious like a sister. She had been there for him too, guiding him through school and offering advice when he needed it. But then, Annie happened. Kelly met Annie at a corporate function. She was stunning, the kind of woman that turned heads. Her charm was effortless, and her presence was commanding. She was the type of woman men fought to impress. Kelly had been no exception. At first, Precious thought nothing of it. She had seen Kelly date before. But something about Annie felt different. It started with Kelly missing their usual dinner meetups. Then, he stopped calling as much. Texts were left unread. Whenever she did manage to get him on the phone, he sounded distracted, distant, different. At first, she convinced herself that he was just busy. He had a demanding job, after all. But as weeks passed, the distance between them grew wider. One evening, Precious decided to visit Kelly unannounced. She needed answers. When Kelly opened the door, he looked genuinely surprised. "Precious? What are you doing here?" "I should be asking you the same thing," she said, folding her arms. "You've been acting strange, avoiding me. Did I do something wrong?" Kelly hesitated. He seemed nervous. "Precious. I didn't want you to find out like this, but I'm engaged." Her stomach dropped. Before she could react, a woman stepped out from behind him. Annie. She was just as beautiful in person as the pictures Precious had seen on Kelly's social media. Tall, elegant, the kind of beauty that made men forget their own names. Annie smiled, but it was the type of smile that didn't reach the eyes. "So, you're Precious," she said, looking her up and down. "Kelly's always talked about you." Precious turned to Kelly, searching his face. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I was going to," he said quickly, sensing the unspoken question. Annie stepped closer, looping her arm through Kelly's. "We've just been so busy with wedding plans. Kelly needs to focus on us now." Precious felt the shift immediately. Annie wasn't just introducing herself, she was staking her claim. "I just came to check on Kelly," Precious said carefully. Annie's smile thinned. "Well, you've checked. Kelly and I are doing just fine. Maybe it's time you moved on too." Kelly said nothing. The silence was louder than any words. Precious swallowed hard and turned away. She had lost him. Ben had never liked Annie. From the beginning, she had tried too hard to change Kelly. She had convinced him to cut off old friendships, ignore family gatherings, and devote himself entirely to her. One day, Ben walked into the kitchen and saw a note taped to the wall. Plates must be washed immediately after eating. No exceptions. Ben frowned. What is this? Annie walked in, her eyes cold. A rule. Ben ripped the note off the wall. You don't get to make rules in a house that isn't yours. Her expression darkened. Without warning, she grabbed a plate and hurled it at him. Ben barely dodged in time. The plate shattered against the wall. What the hell is wrong with you? He shouted. Annie calmly dusted off her hands. I said don't touch my rules. Ben knew then. This woman was dangerous. That evening, Kelly sat in the living room, unwinding after work. His tie was loosened, as he took slow sips from a glass of water. Ben marched into the room, livid. Kelly, we need to talk. Right now. Kelly exhaled deeply, already sensing the confrontation. Ben, I just got back from work. Can't this wait? No, it can't. Ben's eyes blazed. Annie threw a plate at me today. Before Kelly could respond, Annie let out a soft gasp from behind them. He hates me, Kelly, she sobbed. Kelly turned, taken aback by her reaction. Annie sniffled dramatically, holding onto her robe. He's been trying to make me look bad since the day I moved in. Kelly rubbed his forehead, glancing between his brother and his fiancée. Ben, are you sure you're not just overreacting? Ben's jaw clenched. I'm telling you the truth, Kelly. She's lying to you. Annie lowered her head, sniffling softly. I love you, Kelly, she whispered. But your brother clearly doesn't want me here. Kelly looked exhausted, torn between the two. Ben, just let it go, he finally said. Ben stared at his brother in disbelief. You'll regret this, Kelly. And with that, he walked out, determined to find the truth. One afternoon, Ben overheard a hushed conversation between Annie and her mother in the kitchen. You need to hurry, her mother said. Kelly's getting too close to his family again. You need to lock him in before he finds out. Find out what? Annie asked, her voice low. That you have 3 kids. That you've been married before. Ben's stomach dropped. 3 kids? A previous marriage? She had been lying all along. Ben pulled out his phone and hit record. That night, he went to see Kelly in the living room. Kelly, we need to talk. Now. Kelly sighed. Ben, I'm tired of this. Why can't you just accept Annie? Ben played the recording. Kelly's expression changed instantly. His face paled. His hands trembled. No, he muttered. No, no, no. Ben crossed his arms. She lied to you, Kelly. She's been deceiving you this whole time. Kelly sank into his chair, his world crashing down. What are you going to do? Ben asked. Kelly exhaled sharply. I have a plan. Kelly told Annie he had a big surprise, a proposal and a dream house. Annie was surprised and happy. That evening, she told her mother. Then came the big night. Kelly knelt before Annie, holding out a ring. She gasped in excitement, until she turned and saw Precious standing behind him. Her smile vanished. What? What is this? She stammered. Kelly's voice was cold. I know everything, Annie. About your past. About your children. About your lies. Annie's mother gasped. Who told you such nonsense? Kelly held up Ben's phone. You did. Annie took a step back. Kelly, please, I can explain. I don't need an explanation, he said. I just need you to leave. Annie's mother grabbed her arm. Come on, we'll fix this. There's nothing to fix, Kelly said firmly. I was blind, but now I see. As Annie and her mother left, Kelly turned to Precious. You were always there for me. I was a fool. Precious hesitated. Then, slowly, she took his hand. This time, he wouldn't let her go.